Stop and imagine for a second, you're the CEO of a powerful finance company. You feel that you're on top of the world, and for the last 6 years, your company has been taking off. You've seen nothing but green as investors have hopped on board as you create product after product for the finance world. The outlook was bright for the future, only for you to wake up and realize you're standing on a precipice with your company awaiting imminent total collapse. You're about to be hit by a scandal that will make front page news on virtually every newspaper and website in America. You're suddenly cloaked with embarrassment. You have no idea if you're going to resign or try to continue running the company you built from the ground up. This is the story of Mike Cagney and the finance giant he co-founded and led. This is the story of the rise and fall of SoFi, and you are watching bullacademy.org on YouTube. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, don't forget to like the video below, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and comment your thoughts below if you have any on SoFi or would like to share your own investment thesis on the company. These videos are brought to you by our patrons at patreon.bullacademy.org. We do this show together, and their financial support keeps this channel going. If you would like to join our live chat community on Discord, you can learn more at patreon.bullacademy.org. In part 1 of this 2-part series, we'll learn about the rise and fall of the fintech startup, and after that, you won't want to miss the unlikely rebirth of SoFi in part 2. It's time we travel back to the beginning. SoFi, short for social finance, is a finance company that started as a crew of 4 guys with a genius idea and some very big shoes to fill. In 2011, SoFi was created by Mike and 3 other university students who thought there had to be a better way to fund their college education. The group who founded SoFi, Mike Cagney, Dan Macklin, James Finnigan, and Ian Brady, were following in the footsteps of giants. Stanford, their university, boasts an impressive resume of companies that were started by students or graduates of the university. Google, Nike, Yahoo, Capital One, HP, and Robinhood, just to name a few. That's a very impressive list, right? Although this is a great company to be among, SoFi's team might have embraced the established culture a little too strongly. As you'll see soon, the team's college roots didn't officially leave the company until years later. Today, SoFi is a giant in the sphere of digital finance. They offer everything from bank accounts to insurance and credit cards, and beyond their direct-to-consumer offerings, they own the financial tech infrastructure pioneer, Galileo, which should give them the upper hand in the world of financial tech for the years to come. 10 years after its founding, the company arrived at its current chapter after traversing down a road of massive twists and turns, almost completely failing after being rocked by accusations of unethical behavior. Nonetheless, they weathered the storms to become a dominant publicly traded company on the stock market. So how did it all begin? And what is SoFi today? In business, there's an old saying that goes, the solution is in the problem. For any business to be successful, the idea goes, it must find a problem to solve. And within that problem, there are solutions that can be made profitable. The success or failure of any company is determined by its ability to find a problem and deliver solutions that can eventually deliver profits. As we are exploring this 2-part series, SoFi is on the precipice of doing those 2 things exceptionally.
I put together a pie chart that shows the composition of the current consumer lending market in the US. So you've got $14.5 trillion or $11.5 trillion in consumer credit that's outstanding. And this is the breakout. You've got effectively mortgages at about 8 trillion of that, student loans a little over $1 trillion, cards at almost 700 billion, auto at 800 billion, home equity at 576 billion. And I think that the key on this is the average rate for each of these categories. So mortgages at 4.4, home equity 4.9, auto at 4.5. And so the question becomes, if we're all thinking about how we're building transformative, disruptive models in financial services, we're gonna have to figure out how do we go after these lower yielding asset bases because we can't go to the traditional hedge fund source of capital where we can get them a double-digit return, or at least not on a nominal unlevered basis. So what is the approach that we need to take?
Back in 2011, when SoFi was little more than a dream, a brand new startup that hadn't yet taken on any capital, student loan debt was a massive problem in the USA. Just how massive? Well, student loan debt had almost reached a total of $1 trillion. Students were taking on unbelievable amounts of debt to acquire a college education in hopes of getting ahead in life. Should these students graduate, stats show that they have a good chance of getting ahead as desired. College graduates make more money throughout their lives, and they lead longer and healthier lives than their non-college educated counterparts. This is why so many young people have been willing to sacrifice so much of their future earnings to obtain a degree. Because there were so many people willing to put it all on the line for their chance at obtaining a precious degree, there were plenty of other people out there willing to exploit the problems with student loans, which carried obscene interest rates. Countless Americans were still paying off their student loans 4 and sometimes even 5 decades after their graduation. Interest would accumulate, and sometimes people would end up trapped under their debt for life. That's surely not a place anyone wants to be. As many of us know, going to college in America makes millions of students feel that the only way they will ever make it is by living a Spartan existence for the rest of their adult lives, eschewing all pleasures and luxuries. In effect, signing your student loan papers makes you feel like you're signing away your firstborn child. All of this is to say that the cost of education in the United States is absurd and too often unmanageable. This is where Mike and his friends at Stanford decided to focus their efforts. This is the problem SoFi was set out to solve better than any other company. SoFi's unique solution to the student loan problem was to tap into their school's alumni network to create a system by which students could get financial help with their college education. Many of us remember Napster, the file sharing software that made waves in early 2000s by allowing users to share with one another a brand new kind of music file called MP3s. SoFi would operate on the same premise, but for financial aid. It would be a peer-to-peer system for financing college expenses.
So effectively what we did was we had retail investors provide warehouse financing to the business on day one. So they would invest in an unlevered fund, they'd earn a nominal coupon of 5%, and they'd effectively have exposure to the assets in those funds. And they were delineated by school. So if you were a Harvard alum, you could invest in the Harvard pool. If you're a Stanford alum, you invest in a Stanford pool, and so forth.
While there were other peer-to-peer social lending options at the time, SoFi focused on groups of people, and it pooled funds to be distributed through college financial aid offices. Through this program, SoFi was able to offer fixed interest rates of 5.99%, which was significantly lower than the 6.8% interest rates on federal student loans at the time. This made a cheaper and more reliable system for students. Now on the other side, the alumni, who were the original investors in SoFi, could expect a return of at least 5% per year. Like most good businesses that solve a problem, it was a win-win-win. In the early days, SoFi took on money from several investors to get started. They needed capital and received funding from Baseline Ventures, a venture capitalist firm that invests in tech companies, many of which being Silicon Valley startups, including Twitter, Instagram, and Pocket. Ron Suber was another investor who played a massive role in the development of financial tech companies at that time. He entered the banking industry in the early 1990s, and from there, he worked his way up through the financial world. Together, Suber and Baseline Ventures were the first major investors in SoFi. By May 2012, SoFi had introduced a student loan refinancing system, and they were the very first company to refinance federal and private student loans. From there, the company went on to spending several years accumulating capital and reaching out to schools to get them on board. By 2013, SoFi had amassed 2,500 borrowers at 100 schools. Everything was looking up. To help legitimize SoFi's business, a deal was brokered between SoFi and Barclays, along with Morgan Stanley, which created a financial bond backed by the peer-to-peer student loans that were the original idea implemented by SoFi, helping set them apart from the crowd. This was the first of its kind of loan to receive a credit rating. In 2014, SoFi began taking out larger sums of money from investors who saw the company's unique solutions as the way of the future. Notable among these investors was Peter Thiel, one of the co-founders of PayPal and the very first outside investor in Facebook. Today, he is a billionaire venture capitalist who has a long history of founding and investing in successful tech giants such as Palantir, Airbnb, LinkedIn, and SpaceX, to name a few. In this list of unicorns, SoFi is among great companies. In October of 2014, SoFi launched its program offering mortgages to new homeowners. Skip forward to 2015, SoFi became the first US-based fintech company to close $1 billion in a funding round. They also crossed $2 billion of loans distributed to people across the country who were in need that year. They were offering mortgages in 20 different states by this point. By 2016, the company had funded more than $12 billion in total loans, and the number of members had climbed to a whopping 175,000. On the back of this hyper-growth, they announced their SoFi at Work program to offer employee benefits, such as student loan contributions and refinancing. In 2017, SoFi announced that they will now offer student loan refinancing for medical residents and fellows. To achieve all this growth between 2014 and 2017, SoFi took more money from Third Point Management, SoftBank, and Silver Lake. Everything was going well for the young startup out of Stanford University, until disaster struck. It was a frat house. Those were the words used to describe the scene on the inside of the company in late 2017. I'm not making this up. Those are the words used by people on the inside as they describe the insane free-for-all that was the company's ethos. SoFi's employees began to speak out with accusations of sexual assault and other unruly behavior. The company had grown and it was valued at an astounding $4 billion. A $4 billion frat house. It was the height of the Me Too movement, a time when other giants were collapsing under similar accusations. Celebrities like R. Kelly were finally having the spotlight put on their abusive behaviors of the past. Harvey Weinstein's scandal was just then breaking into the public. Even NBC was rocked by allegations against Good Morning America host Matt Lauer. It was a horrible time to be a company with an immature college bro as your CEO. Mike Cagney was alleged to have often discussed the size of his genitals to his employees and staff. Cagney was also alleged to have discussed his sexual conquest with people within the company, just as one can assume happens at a frat house. Sounds like Mike Cagney was trying to put the social in social finance in all the wrong ways. He's also alleged to have berated employees for the slightest mistake, ridiculing them in a traditional frat boy fashion. Oh, and did I mention there were reports of executives throwing and breaking telephones when they got angry? Yeah, allegedly that happened too. Women came forward saying that Cagney was sexually harassing much younger women. Beyond this, he was bombarding women with flirtatious, sometimes sexual text messages, obviously violating any sensible sexual harassment policy that has ever existed. Ever. All this spelled disaster. Eventually, there was only one option. Cagney had to resign from the company. In September of 2017, the announcement was made. For a brief moment, legacy stock brokerage institution Charles Schwab considered buying SoFi. The once triumphant startup was neck deep in a scandal of epic proportions with seemingly no chance of surviving the fallout. Instead of throwing in the towel by selling, SoFi decided to turn over many of its executives. At the same time, the CEO of Twitter, Anthony Noto, resigned from Twitter to accept the position of CEO at SoFi. Following Anthony to SoFi, a Goldman Sachs executive named Michelle Gill would end up taking over as CFO. Only a few years later, Anthony Noto managed to take SoFi public. And we will explore this massive turnaround in the second part of this two-part series, the Rebirth of SoFi, where we find out how SoFi went from being a disgraced company in shambles to becoming a fintech behemoth with a promising future that would shine brighter than anyone could have imagined. You have been watching bullacademy.org on YouTube, where we teach long-term investing by breaking down concepts and sharing the stories of companies to help you build long-lasting, sustainable wealth that will help you retire on your terms. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did and want to see more like it, please remember to like the video below, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and comment your thoughts on this topic. I would love to hear from you, and I always do my best to respond to every comment. And if you would like to engage with me outside of YouTube, feel free to follow me over on Instagram at Lincoln W. Daniel, where I share random thoughts on life and wealth building that I believe would help others. Finally, as always, this video has been brought to you by our patrons at patreon.boacademy.org who support this channel financially to help us keep going and help me brainstorm new video ideas to share with all of you. We do all of this in our private Discord channel where we share knowledge and discuss the stock market in real time every day by sharing news, rumors, and new investment ideas so we can all do our own research and then come back together and collaborate. So if you're interested in all of that, I hope you'll join us over at patreon.boacademy.org. I'm Lincoln with boacademy.org. Thank you again and have a great day.